So you've got character. A lot of times when we talk about characters or we talk about people, even when we introduce ourselves, we use somewhat superficial values to define ourselves. So for myself, I'm a screenwriter. I'm working towards being a brand strategist for people. I'm definitely a creator. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a visionary. I have a nonprofit organization that I will be launching upon graduation. I direct. I'm a mom above all things else. But the things that really make me who I am and make me tick are more those flaws and those internal things, the traumas I've had in my life, the way they affect me, the way that I walk in a room, the way I carry myself. And with all of us, there are those little things that define our character. If you were to walk in a room and someone left their purse on the counter, the internal dialogue that you have with yourself. For one person, it may be, oh my gosh, someone left their purse. Let me see who it was. For another person, it could be they're tempted to go through that purse or just nosy. So those things that we often don't think of when we define people really show us our character, really show characters. And it's the same with the characters that you write. If you put just a person with a profession in a situation that's going to be very bland, very superficial, and there's not really going to be anything to keep your audience engaged or make your audience care about their journey. So I used to hear a phrase, your gift will take you places your characters can't keep you, but I reworded that for the purpose of this demo. Your gift takes you places, but your characters keep you. Meaning you may be a great writer. You may understand you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But again, if your characters are flat, you're not going to be able to hold your audience. So when you look at the definition of character, there's the obvious, a person in a novel, a play, or a movie. Character often has to do with a person's good or bad reputation. You can look at, someone being a character. It literally becomes like a adjective to describe someone. Someone can be in character, meaning they're doing something that you expect of them because of your understanding of them and their personality, because of what you know about their flaws and their character. And then they can do something that's out of character, meaning you never expected it to come. It comes from out of left field. And often when you're writing, if you want to have a strong character, taking them in and out of that perceived character is the way that you make it more compelling. So what I mean by that is your character has to have an arc, and their arc has to go from worse to better, from better to worse, or from good to even better, or from bad to even worse. So if you have a person and they come in and they're happy and nothing changes in their life and there's no growth or there's no, deterioration, it gets boring, it gets stale. So you want to look at their mental and moral qualities, and you want to use those as an opportunity to make that person either grow or decline. So one example would be like Walter White in Breaking Bad. And I want this to be interactive, so you guys can have your cameras or mics on, and I'm going to ask questions. So if I talk about Walter White from Breaking Bad, like what does that bring to mind for you? What would you say about his character or how he changed? Anybody?
Excuse me. I want to say, like, I'm a big fan of the show, and like how one incident in his life or like one circumstances, spoiler alert, like him getting cancer, that just changed his whole worldview. He went from like, like a guy, upstanding citizen guy, just wanting to work his job. He wasn't getting paid as much, but he also wasn't getting that much respect, to a kingpin. Like he just needed that one incident to unlock that potential he had buried in him. And it was an evil potential, but it was unlocked. So that's his growth.
Yeah, that's a very good assessment of Walter. And he had an arc. He went from
I wasn't up there.
I'm sorry.
Downstairs.
Oh, someone, you got your mic on. But he went from school teacher, pushover, intimidated by his brother-in-law, to the best meth chemist in their area, catching bodies, melting people in acid. Like, his character did a complete arc. He went from being the good guy that you rooted for to the bad guy that you rooted for, because I still like Walter, but I love how they evolved the character. So that was a good answer. Does anyone else want to chime in? Or maybe even talk about a character whose arc you enjoy, because it may be a show we're not hip to that we might want to see.
Oh, I have one. Hi, I'm Imani.
Hi, Imani.
Killing Eve is a show that I really enjoy. I don't know if you guys have watched it.
That's my show.
It's so good. I love it. But the character arc for the main titular character, Eve, she goes from like being this detective who's chasing this assassin to like herself. Well, spoiler alert, she just essentially like explores the darker side of humanity, just like with stealing, committing crimes, like even as far as like murder. So she goes from like this detective who's like pretty much on the up and up, and she has like some interest in like those darker themes, to from like just having an interest, she goes very much into the world to even like committing some of those crimes herself.
Okay.
All right. But she also has like this moral argument because she still wants to be like a good person. So you definitely, that fluctuation that you mentioned of like her being in character and going out of character, you very much see that.
Yeah, and so what you're talking about is her internal conflicts as well. And next week we're going to talk about conflict, and character is going to kind of like lead right into that. But I'm sure you've seen 100 shows where there's some woman who has to, get to the bottom of some mystery. But it's her character that's keeping you there, all those nuances, the little, intricacies, and the way that the arc of the person changes, and keeps her from being flat. So now I have some examples. I'm just gonna throw some images up here. So now thinking about what we talked about, not the, he's a billionaire, he was president of the United States. When you see this picture of this person, whether it's conscious or subconscious, you make an assessment of his character. And if any, I'm not gonna necessarily ask anybody to share, because I'm not trying to make this political. But for everyone, when you saw this picture, it did something to you internally because of your evaluation of what his character is. You were either, proud that you voted for him, or you were like, how did he get elected? But some way or another, you felt something. And that's because he has a very strong character, and his flaws are very much on the surface. And also, some of the things he does to show his compassion, or, if that's the way you perceive him. But whatever your interpretation of him is, when you see him, his character is very much on display, or you at least have a judgment of it. Same thing for this person. No matter how you feel about him one way or the other, when you see him, because his life has been on display, he was on display for 8 years, it's going to trigger something in you. Whatever it is that you feel about him, you're going to connect with that instantly. Now, what about these two people? They're like pretty dominant in African-American comedy. You got the characters from Friday. And if you look at Craig, he's one type of person. If you look at Smokey, he's another type of person. And I don't think either of them's character would have been as strong if they hadn't been with each other. So when we get into conflict, we'll talk about it a little bit more. But when you are building your characters, you want to have a variety. You want to have different people who bring different things out of each other. So with Craig, for instance, his father brought out the fear. His Smokey brings out his irritation. Debo actually brought a hero out of him. there are different things. And then I can't remember what Nia Long's character name was, but you know, she brought out an affection. He was crazy about her. That was his girl. So as I said, when you see this, certain lines come to mind, but also every time he walked on the street, the whole neighborhood was in fear. So, you know, he was not only the antagonist, his character brought a lot to it. So for now, I'm gonna go away from here. Hold on, we're gonna do questions later. And I'm gonna go over this form and I'm gonna give you a form of this. I'm not gonna put it in the chat, but if you put your email in the chat, I'll be able to send it out to everyone. Or I have a booking form on my website, so maybe I'll make this available somewhere on the site. But this is a tool that I use whenever I'm putting my characters together. And there's a million of them online. You can actually look these up yourself and find the one that works for you. But for my senior project, I'm doing a movie called The Lie of You. So in fleshing out my own antagonist and protagonist, hold on, I gotta get my page so I can make it move how I want to. While I'm doing that, does anyone have any questions or comments about what we've gone over so far? Please, I'd like for you to engage.
Yes, my name is Adrian. I have a question.
Sure.
I guess as it relates to screenwriting, is there, for lack of a better word, is there a better point in the script where the character arc should take place?
So that's a tough question. The arc should be something that is always, for me, adjusting over it. So I believe in showing, not telling. So if you start out and say, so let's use Breaking Bad, for example. We found out that Walter had cancer because he went to the doctor, or they called the house or whatever, and they told him he had cancer. A more effective way to have done that is he's already in chemo. He's already weak and coughing. And then maybe the doctor comes in and tells him he's recovering. So we get to see him weak, we get to see him flawed. It raises the stakes of the cancer and it increases the urgency that he may die. And it sets up the stakes a little bit better. And so with your character arc, there's not like a one place that is better to do it. The person should always be evolving. You can have the person say they go from good to bad. In the first scene, they may walk past a homeless person and give them $1. Maybe around the midpoint or later, they might walk past a homeless person and kick them. And you'll see just how they're treating that same person in that same situation, that they've changed, but you're showing it rather than it being like on the nose, or it's apparent that you're trying to make the person change, if that makes sense. Did that make sense to you or answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or anything about what we talked about so far? Okay. Okay, so like I said, this is a form that I use, and I'm just going to show you some of the kind of questions that are on it. So for the main character in here, I go through what is their external goal in the story. So for this particular person, she has committed murder and she wants people to understand that it was self-defense. But the truth of the matter is that's not what statistics do for her. So I'm setting up what her stakes are up front. She wants the system to regard the murder as an act of self-defense, and she doesn't want her children to hate her for killing their father. And since I did this profile, she's completely changed. She don't even have kids. But in starting it out and setting her up, I had to get to know her before I could write her. So other types of question, you want to know not only who is your hero, but who's their antagonist, who's trying to stop them, Who wants to prevent them from achieving their goal in the story? And sometimes that can be the person themselves, but you want someone outside of the person as well, because we're not going to be mean to or torture ourselves in the same way that some heartless external force would. Sometimes the opposition is society. You look at a movie that's about slavery. Yeah, you may have the master or the overseer being brutal, but they're just part of a bigger system. So you want to set up your antagonist, and you can have more than one. And sometimes it's people who mean well that are the antagonists. And maybe the person wanting to go to Hollywood and follow their dreams, and their mother is trying to talk them out of it. And it's not that she necessarily wants to hurt them, but it's more she's trying to be more practical or thinking of their future or their prospects. So in that regard, she would be an antagonist, but not necessarily the major antagonist in the story. But you want to have different challenges and obstacles that come up. And sometimes it doesn't, it doesn't have to be the same person doing that. And how your main character responds to that antagonist will tell you a lot about them. Do they fight? Is there flight? Do they start off being like a pushover, like we said about Walter White? Do they rise to the occasion? Do they have to get external help? Do they go to the police? All these different angles. So in me doing like this particular character, I started off wanting her to go to the police and turn herself in. I ended up saying, nah, what if she covered it up? And that came from putting the different ideas out there, playing with them, and then finding like what was the juiciest thing, and putting myself through a mental thing of me personally. What would make me like want to harm somebody? If I didn't go to the police, what would be my reasons why? And a lot of times parts of you go into your characters or parts of people that you know. So the other questions are like, what happens if your hero fails? And then like basic demographic stuff. Where are they born? What's their birth date? Do they have siblings? What was their favorite toy growing up? Greatest fear? What are they willing to die for? What are their financial, socioeconomic standings? Are they rich? Are they middle class? Are they poor? All those things affect how people deal with the situation and a problem. If you're rich and it's a financial problem, you're going to go find investors, versus if you're poor and it's a financial problem, you might have to go rob a store or shoplift or something. So all of these things, if you figure them out up ahead, then when you get into your story, especially in your second act, you're not struggling to now fill these spots in because you've already thought of it ahead. So like I said, I'm gonna make this available to you, or I'll get with Bronte and maybe we'll email it out to everyone who was on today just to follow up. But if you look at this inventory, this is a fairly moderate one. There are longer ones, but I've got 39 questions on here that I ask of the hero and at least the protagonist in the story, if no one else. So at this point, I again want to stop and see if anyone has any questions about anything. My plan was to speak for maybe 45 minutes to an hour today, and just kind of see who showed up and where you are in your writing journey. Maybe you might have an issue with the character that you want to resolve.
I got a question just about like, are there, can you think of an example? Like I know for myself, when I'm exploring the character and their backstory, it's hard for me to make like big choices because I'm like, am I arbitrarily taking away their kids? Like, do you consider the genre like mad early in the beginning process? Like if I was making a something like melodramatic versus like a comedy, like could there still be like the same, would the character make the same decision in a comedy that they would a dramedy or something like that? Yeah.
So they could potentially make the same choice. Well, what I would say is, first of all, you want to kind of come up with your log line, and you definitely want to have an idea of your genre and understand, no matter, like, say you're doing a drama, you're still going to have some comedy or some elements of comedy, because if you just make your character drama, 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 stress, 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 action, 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 it gets too intense for your audience. So that's why you'll see a movie like Bad Boys. You've got the Will Smith balancing off the Martin Lawrence. And yeah, they're chasing these people and they're fighting and going through all of this, but then you're laughing at times too. And it's a good mix and a good balance. And what a lot of people don't realize too is you can mix genres. So you can have, like Bad Boys, a drama that's a comedy. You can have an action that's in comedy. Don't necessarily limit yourself to thinking it has to be this one thing. Once you go through and you really work through your characters, they'll kind of tell you what it is. So there's been times I sat down and I said, I want to write a comedy, and that's what it was. And there were times when I wrote something and I was like, oh, well, this is going to be serious. And then when I started writing it, there were comedic elements. So I just wrote something about domestic violence. And there's a lot of, like, you know, girlfriend, high five, slap your moments in it. And that wasn't the plan. But as the characters began to develop, and as I saw them in certain scenarios, that's how I felt that they would respond based on their personality. So that was a really good question. Did I answer that effectively for you?
Yes, you did. Thank you. And I
Okay.
like, it takes sometimes going up through that. It's not, I needed you to go through that process of thought so I can understand. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Any more questions from anybody?
Yeah, I would say like well, like with my own like story process, I already got like the main character and the antagonist, you know, down packed. My struggle is that adding those side characters to help flesh out the story a bit more, flesh out the world a bit more is, like, I would say, like, for me it is a little bit challenging because I want like the character, I want the side character to play into the themes of the story I'm trying to tell and like how it affects the main character. But that's why I'm like having struggle with like how to come up with these side characters.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull up a tool that could be helpful. For one, you know, your side characters should add to it. They should feel like genuine. So without like getting too much into your premise, can you kind of set up the characters, like who's your protagonist, who's your antagonist?
Yeah, so my protagonist, is named Kai. He's in his 20s. He's about 24. No, not 24. He's like 22, 21. And from Philly, he's a hacker. And he is trying to figure out why his neighborhood is getting gentrified at such an efficient rate and nobody's talking about it. Like, it's so efficient to the point, like, literally he turns around, it's a new building across the street or a new housing apartment and nobody cares. And his antagonist, RPG, which is like an acronym for like Philadelphia Regional Group. And it's pretty much like this housing agency, just like, hey, we're gonna do our thing and keep on buying these properties, and you ain't gonna do nothing about it. But we want your property because your property holds the key to our main goal. And Kai is trying to get people aware of this to try to stop it. And the antagonist is just like, yeah, you can do what you gotta do. I'm still go about my mission.
Okay, so one thing I would give, you know, your character an ally. It could be a reluctant ally, meaning it could be the grouchy neighbor across the street who yells at them to stay out of his yard all the time. but he don't want to sell his house and leave the neighborhood either. And then that, because what you want to have is conflict among your allies too. So again, if you go back to like Friday, Craig and Smokey. Smokey brought Craig into some mess he ain't want nothing to do with. But Debo mad at both of them. I mean, Big Worm is mad at both of them. So whether he wants to go up against Big Worm or not, they're now allies. They have to. So it's a matter of just bringing in people who will add to it. And I'm going to bring up a sheet now that'll help you. This isn't my template, but these are the types of things that you can look. Let me tell you, Google is your best friend when you write in, and so is YouTube. But I'm gonna pull up these.
Definitely YouTube. Definitely YouTube.
And I'm just picking something, random on here. So this is from masterclass.com. Let me share. I stopped sharing, so let me share my screen again. Here we go. All right, so even if we go here, the 12 archetypes. So any of these you can pick from. So going back to the example of Friday, we had Craig as our main character, and then Smokey was definitely a jester. And they do that again in all the Friday movies. It goes from it being Chris Tucker to being Mike Epps. But you have this jester type character who, no one takes serious, and he just keeps making things worse and raising the stakes for the hero in the story. So this will break down what an archetype is, but I'm trying to get to what the different ones are. All right, so you have the lover, someone who's romantic, who's guided by their heart. So you could have that be your main. A lot of times people make that the main character, but they're usually naive. They're usually more irrational. You have the hero. That could be the main character as well. So basically, when you go through these different archetypes, you figure out who your main character is. And 9 times out of 10, so if in a comedy, they could be the hero, they could be the jester. If it's an action, they're likely gonna be the hero. If it's a romantic comedy, they're likely gonna be the lover, and so on and so forth. But you have the hero type person, and I'm gonna put this in the chat for you guys. Just an example. But you'll have the hero archetype, and that person, they're brave and courageous, but sometimes they might be a little overconfident. So even with this one, it gives you their strengths and their weaknesses. So you can pull from both. The magician, a powerful figure who harnessed the ways of the universe to achieve goals. So the magician is usually someone with a supernatural power. So the examples, Darth Vader in the Star Wars, or Morpheus in the Matrix. And it's like, their strength is usually they know everything, they can do everything. Often they're disciplined, whether they're a good character or a bad character. But then sometimes their weakness can be they're corruptible, or they're arrogant, or it could just be like, not necessarily that they have a weakness, but whenever you're writing something, you want the character to be their own hero. So if you've got this other magical or hero person in there, you got to kind of, take them out at the knees to give your character the ability to rise to the occasion. There's also the outlaw. So think about like a lot of teen dramas, they'll do the outlaw or the rebel. Your main character is more straight-laced, but then they've got this goth or, emo friend that they're friends with outside their friend group, and their friends don't want them to be friends with that person because they're not part of the same, group. So the outlaw is often a good ally. So going back to your question, what if there was a drug dealer who didn't want things to be gentrified because it's bringing heat to the block? But like that's one character that you could pull in. Another one is the explorer, someone who is taking the character further than they feel they need to go to get what they want done. So maybe he's just trying to gentrify the neighborhood, but then they find out that this person who's coming in the neighborhood is trying to take over the planet. So this person is like, okay, I didn't want to do all of that. I'm just trying to, you know, make sure grandma don't have to get off the block. But you've got the explorer to kind of push them and raise the stakes as well. The sage, you always need somebody who's wise. So maybe the grumpy old man has a very nice wife who goes to the local church and bakes cookies and fusses at him every time he yells at the kids. The innocent, it could be a little kid who they're poor. And if they get pushed out their apartment, you know, they got a mother, you know, on drugs or something. And if they get pushed out of this neighborhood, they can't afford to live anywhere else. So, like I said, let me make sure that I did put that in the chat. And I don't want to like go through this whole lesson because it's not like my lesson plan, but that'll give you some ideas of things and places that you could go with your character. So I'm gonna drop that in there for everybody. That's in the chat now. And you can always Google and find other examples, but this is a good place to start. And I'm gonna stop sharing now. I see you still have your hand up, Harrison. Did you just forget to take it down, or do you have another question?
Oh, no, I just didn't put it down.
That's fine. Okay, so are there any more questions or anything that people want me to consider for the next session that we do? Because I know that there is there are creative rooms after this. So I don't want to hold anyone up from being able to go and do their creative part of everything.
That creative room is for us to workshop our idea that you just like implementing what you like just talked about.
So the creative rooms are where Bronte has set up writing projects for different writers. For instance, I know that Edward, the scenario he was just talking about with the hacker, I believe he has a creative room for that. So you can actually sign up to be part of a writing team. So after we do these sessions, we break out into those groups and you can actually be actively writing on a project. So I know, like for him, example, he has to go and, you know, work with his group. And I just want to respect like the format or the time so that everyone gets opportunity to do that. Because ultimately it's the urban writers room. It's not, you know, the urban listen to me room. But I just want to give you tools to help you make your character stronger. And like for you, Edward, you know, when we have the next meeting, I want to know, how did this help you? And I hope it's helping you already. I'm gonna send you also like let me find the inventory. I'm gonna send you guys an inventory similar to the one that I use until you can find another one. No, it's giving me what it wants to. Give me a second. I'm just gonna find something real quick. Okay, this looks like a good one right here. Let's do this. All right, and this is just something that I found on Pinterest. They're everywhere. You know, one thing, the last session that we're gonna do is just about the craft of storytelling. And that's gonna talk about, you know, just moving from being a novice or maybe it being a hobby to making it more professional. And one of the main things that I've learned is if you, as far as writing, you really have to kind of drive your own career. There's a lot of competition. There are gonna be a lot of naysayers. And you really just gotta have a, I'm not taking no for an answer type attitude. And if people don't want to give you the answers, then you find them, whether it's Google, whether it's YouTube, whether it's taking a workshop or an additional class. There are mentorships and there are fellowships, and there's a lot of resources out there. But up until the pandemic, there were a lot of gatekeepers and a lot of barriers. So this is like a prime time to get into this screenwriting and, creative market and take advantage of that. I give a lot of the freedom that's out there. I give Netflix a lot of credit for that, because when they started their company, they were kind of pushed out of the traditional system, and they started creating opportunities for themselves. And as a result, for like independent writers, because it was hard to get people that were already part of that Hollywood system. But again, like, does anyone else have any questions, any feedback? And usually people in the beginning, they'll have everyone go around and introduce themselves. But I wanted to save that till the end to give everybody time to come in. I would like to know who all of you are. So I want to have you go around and maybe say who you are, where you're from, and like at least one thing that you feel like you got out of the session today. Does that sound okay?
I do have a question if we have time.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you explain B story? Just briefly, B story.
Okay. That's a good question. Okay. So when you are writing a story, you have your A story. So let me think of an example. Let me think of a movie. Let me put a movie in my mind. Okay, we'll go back to Breaking Bad. Walter White, his A story is he's trying to sell meth to have enough money for his family if he dies. Let me see. His B story in the beginning is somewhat he's trying to hide it from his family. So it's like your A story, your B story. Your A story is like your biggest stakes. Your B story is kind of like the underlying things that are going on. So you could have a guy, the A story is he falls in love with this girl. The B story is he's also trying, let me use, what's that movie? Can't Buy Love with Nick Cannon. That's what popped in my head. So he's in love with the popular girl, but his job, she's just helping him to fit in with the other kids. That's like his A story. His B story is he's a really intelligent mechanic, and he's trying to compete in the science fair. So, or mechanic competition or whatever it was he was doing, building the engine with his friends. So the B story would be more, this is still another goal that he has, is not necessarily his major goal. Let me think of some that are better, because I wasn't expecting the question, and I'm trying not to relate it to my stuff because you don't know my story, so it doesn't benefit you. That might be a better one. So I wrote a story. It's about some things that happened to me as a child, but basically my sister and a cousin, we got chased by some people. They were calling us the N-word. The guy pulled over, popped the trunk, and we had to run and hide. So the A story is about racism and missing persons, and it's this big story. The B story is the internal conflict between me and my sister, her being 10 years older and not respecting my input into the situation to help save our lives. The C story was all of the missing and exploited women and children who were taken by the same person who's chasing us. So it's like you have multiple things going on in a story, and they add more layers to it. If it was just a story about the guy chasing us, that would have been boring. But then adding me and the sister getting the respect at the end, that adds like another layer. If that, I'm working on not saying if that makes sense. But did that help you understand it better?
That's helpful, yes, thank you.
And I'm trying not to be too wordy either, but like, bear with me.
No, I get it, I appreciate it, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay, so at this point, like I said, I'm gonna go around, just say who you are, where you're from, maybe what your aspirations are, and like maybe one thing you feel that you learned or that was beneficial about being here today. And I got everybody names here on my screen in a certain order. So I'm just gonna go through the order I see them. So I'm gonna start with Harrison. Okay.
Love, peace, and power, family. Harrison here. I learned a lot. I got that the body, because I come from like the world of acting theater training. So the 12 archetypes is that, like, I remember doing that. And there was an exercise that we used to do. It would be like a clap. Every time we clapped, we had to get a different pose. Like if I was coming from, like if I was a lover and I was coming from a heart space versus like the thinker, the head space, like I just, those are all tools. And then like once you're in the pose, like you could just start, like it's a place to start triggering like a character's backstory. Like I can't, like you really stress the character's backstory and as to not be flat. And then again, in the earlier process of it, I'll just wrap up by saying that it might seem like arbitrary to like ask myself some of these questions, but what I got from it is that it's not, is that it's part of the process, and like that I can rely on some of my old exercises. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so next, Edward, you're the next one on my screen order.
My name is Edward Washington. I'm from West Philly. I am a filmmaker. I've been doing this for a very long time. I always had dreams of being a filmmaker when I was like 6 or 7 years old, watching the Oscars. I don't know if people watch the Oscars, but back then that was my jam. You know, like, and I was hurt when Eddie Murphy got the Oscars in Dreamgirls. So I really had like this whole revenge thing where I'm like, yeah, I want to be the first Black man to win 3 Oscars in one night before the age of 28, or at the age of 28, because the youngest one to do it was Cuba Gooding Jr. And I'm gonna be honest, that's not his best movie. We all know Jerry Maguire. Me personally, I don't think so. But yeah, that's always been like my goal, and I just been striving to get to that ever since. Now I'm 23, so I got 5 more years, so still on a mission.
You are still very young. You got plenty of time. Is there one thing like you feel like you got from today?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for today, yeah, just honing down on the characters and trying to make them more expressive that the audience can connect with them as well. And have it like fit in with the story.
Okay. And
I like I'm sorry.
oh no, you go.
I was gonna say like, yeah, I really appreciate that template that you sent on the master class. I thought that would definitely help a lot.
Awesome. No, I was gonna say Eddie Murphy in Dreamgirls, that is my favorite role by him of all, everything he's ever done. And
Yeah.
I just knew he was gonna win that Oscar too. And I was hurt when he didn't, for him, with you. Yeah, so that resonated.
I want
So
to recreate Dreamgirls. Oh, I'm sorry.
go for it. We get a new rebooting is not a bad thing. They reboot over and over and over again. So I will work on it and have it ready. So next we have, all it says is iPhone.
Oh, that would probably be me, maybe Sabrina.
Okay, hi Sabrina.
Hi, I am from Brooklyn. I am a novice. I've always been a creative writer, but I know I have a story, a few of them in me. This was very helpful to me. Everything, the whole entire, all the information that you provided. I'm in the beginning process of writing I don't know what I want it to be yet, a story, a book, movie, a series, I don't know. But it's loosely based on my life and the information that you gave providing, I'm sorry, about the oh, I'm sorry, what is it called? Archetype?
Archetypes, yeah.
Archetype, yes. That was very helpful. And just like I said, I'm just in the beginning process of developing characters, the antagonists and protagonists. And everything was just very helpful. And I look forward to following through with this so I can get more information and make my piece even better than what it already is because it's amazing.
Oh, awesome. Thank you guys, because I just want to make sure that it's helping you, you know. So that's all.
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. And now we have Javon Ward. Okay, Javon, we'll come back. You're still muted if you're trying to come on, so we'll go to the next person. Imani.
Oh, hi, that's me. Um, my name is Imani. I'm also from Brooklyn. TV and film has always been my dream. I've actually been writing scripts since I was like 16 years old. I have so many ideas for scripts. I've been working in TV and film industry for like the past 7 years.
Mhm.
And now I'm just like really deciding to, I guess, recommit to writing and directing and all of these things that I want to do because I have so many stories to tell. So that's kind of where I'm at on my journey. One thing that did, well, a lot of this whole class has been very, very helpful. But one thing that really, really stood out to me was having allies for the main characters. Because that's when I usually write my stories, I only focus on the characters, but that was really, really helpful. And that's definitely something I'm going to add to one of my stories that I'm developing, is having like a reluctant ally. So that was pretty good. And also the arc of the character going like in and out of character, that was like also very, very helpful as well. So yeah.
Awesome, y'all making me feel good. Okay, you said that
Okay.
you've been working like in film for several years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what area are you working? Like, are you doing more production?
I've done it all. When I first started in film a couple years ago, I wanted to be a cinematographer. So I've done camera work, like assistant camera, second AC. What else? I've shot like my own small projects. I've worked on set in the art department. I've done like grip and electrical. I've been a PA. I've done like, what else? The only thing I haven't done really is like sound and like hair and makeup and stuff. But I've worked on like I was freelance for like many years in the film industry. But now I'm more focusing on research. I just finished a gig where I was a researcher for like the documentary.
Mhm.
And I'm getting back into like post production for like my gigs, you know, to make money. But my passion is like creating stories. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for your input. And then it
I
looks like you
apologize.
came back to Ron.
Yes, I'm here. I apologize. So yes, I am from Michigan in the Detroit area. I forgot the questions we're supposed to be answering. What are we?
Basically,
What are we-
introduce yourself.
Okay.
I'm kind of forgetting too, because they've been having such awesome answers, but introduce yourself, just kind of tell us who you are and something you feel like you got out of today's session or something.
Okay,
you feel like
sure.
helped you write it.
Okay. Yes, I'm a writer, and I'm directing my first short film a month from now. That I wrote, I'm producing, and want to take it further. Want to just start off with a short film, just to like test the waters, break the ice, and then plan to shoot a feature hopefully next year. I'm currently working on that script right now. And what did I learn today? Thank you for clearing up my confusion about B story, and also the link you shared about the archetypes. I just kind of skimmed through that a little bit, but I found that to be helpful. So
Yeah, enough stuff on YouTube and stuff that goes more in depth. So, you know, sit with that information. But congratulations on working, getting started on your short film.
thank
And
you.
it all starts with the first step. So
Yes.
I applaud all of you for taking the first step, no matter where you are in this journey, to work on your screenwriting. Because for me, it was scary. So, you know. Next we've got Susanna.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. My name is Susanna. I would like to, I tuned in kind of late in the class. I was like struggling to log on. But I'm from Manhattan, and from what I did catch, I did really enjoy and appreciate like the way well, I want to start story writing. So when I did tune in, I caught the arc like in developing your character, and the way you broke it down, it was very helpful because the way you explained it, and it allowed me to like probably get the first step to starting a story. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Welcome, Susanna.
Mhm.
And then it looks like we have Devin.
Hello, my name is Devin. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut, and I recently just wrote my first comedy pilot. Something that I got from this class that's helpful, it's always helpful to hear, is learning the character arcs as usual, because sometimes I can feel like I don't know where I'm going with my character. So like you talking about the character arcs was really helpful for me to think about, because I was gonna actually add an answer, but it seemed like we had to move on. Um, but yeah, character arcs is probably the best thing that I learned today. And then thank you also for submitting the templates as well, because I'm definitely going to take a look at that, because I'm always revising my pilot. So yes.
No problem. Did you say you had a question about that or something?
About the character arcs.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna talk about a character from a TV show that I had wanted to share, but we had to move on, so I didn't chime in.
Okay. If you want to briefly go over whatever it was, because I didn't know you wanted to in the future, like just put the hand raise thing up while we're on the subject, and then
Okay.
we can get it.
Okay.
So did you have like an example of a character?
Yeah, I did have an example.
Okay,
So
like 30 seconds if you can. Yeah, go for it.
okay, yeah, I'll go through it real fast. So in a show called Search Party on HBO Max, there's this character, her name is Dory. So she kind of starts off looking, she's kind of like a naive college student. She's looking for another missing girl. But by the end of the series, she just did like a whole 180, and she kind of becomes the villain of the story. So like her arc was really unexpected, but it really just goes to show you like you can really write about anything. So yeah,
All
that's in a
right.
nutshell.
And you said that was Search Party?
Search Party on HBO Max.
Okay, I'm gonna check. I just like to, when people say they like a character, I like to check out the show. Urban Writers, that's you, right, Bronte? I'll come back because they say muted, wherever it is. And then we've got Aguilera. Gutierrez, are you there? Jose? Okay, so maybe he logged off, or you're still muted, Jose? At Urban Writers Room? Okay. So I guess they checked out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my information down here from my website. Think I put it in there early. I'm gonna put it on there again. For Raw Black Films, I just want to help everybody. So you can go on the site and book like a consultation. I'll talk with you like 20, 30 minutes if you have questions about some project or script that you're working on. And then as we develop a relationship, you learn to trust me. I do have consultative services on there. If you've got a script you'd like coverage on, I can help you with that. If you feel like you got the bomb script and you're ready to send it to Netflix, I can help you with your pitch deck. But the list of services is on there, and I'm not trying to do a hard sell or anything. Just know, save my website with the other links you got. And if you ever need to reach out, I'm more than happy to help. And those prices are negotiable because people come in at different levels. And I've had like people offering coaching programs and they want like $900. And I mean, I couldn't afford it at the time. So I don't want anybody to feel like they can't pursue their passion because of a price tag. Like, that's just the truth. So reach out to me anytime if you got any questions about what we've done and so on and so forth. And I thank all of you for your time. It is 3:58. Oh, thanks, guys. I'm looking at your comments. And I didn't miss any questions in the comments, did I? I saw you, Jose, saying you didn't have a question. We just wanted you to introduce yourself and tell us what you got out of today's session. But I appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate all of your questions, all of your input, all of your feedback. And it's 3:59, so I'm not gonna hold y'all any longer. And we're gonna get to your creative room. The rest of you guys enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you again soon. Make sure you reach out to me on my website, okay?
Yeah. See ya. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, wow. I love that. That was so good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh. I thought I was like,
Let's
no.